Ողջույն ձեզ, հարգելի լրատվամիջոցներ,
Dear representatives of mass media, I'd like to welcome you, dear audience. I would like to welcome you. The Unified Information Center continues its work from Stepanakert. A few words about the situation on the front line. I'll present it in a few words and then I will take your questions. It's a bit unusual to be seated and to be talking to you without a mask. Today and throughout the day, Azerbaijani forces, different diversion groups, mercenaries and terrorists in different directions, including the northwestern part of Artsakh and the forests there were trying to attack in separate groups, in separate battalions, in separate diversion groups. They were trying to attack. They were pushed back, leaving a few corpses on the battlefield. There were not so large-scale events in the eastern part of the southeastern part of the country. Today, you saw the video that we filmed from our UAV. It's the area around Shushi, within 10-15 kilometers of the radius, and we filmed the way the infantry of the enemy is destroyed with our missile fire. And we chose a very vivid title for that. The Turkish know very well what it means, Gurbagur 2020. This will be continued, and I have mentioned several times that all these valleys, all the forests, the areas that are within arm's stretch from the capital of Artsakh, they will become hell for the enemy. There were battles in the southern part along Vorotan River, to be more specific, on one height, and one brigade with their armory with ammunition. They were trying to attack us. They were kicked back. The enemy is using air force. They use artillery to a moderate extent, but in some areas where they are trying to attack us, the intensity of the fire increases. This is the situation in general features, and now I'll try to take your questions. MNTV company, dear Mr. Artsrun, can you say what is the situation in the borders of Armenia, Tavush, Gerarkunik and Sunik? In the Republic of Armenia, on the borderline, in Gerarkunik, 3 times today the enemy's UAVs have been taken down. The Armenian forces took down 3 UAVs within a short period of time. There were no other military actions in other parts of the country. 1.am, Mr. Hovhannisyan, thank you for your work. I have 2 questions. We saw the brilliant work of our UAV. Can we anticipate that the UAVs will become the permanent part of our arsenal? And my second question is, Azerbaijani forces, Azerbaijani media are spreading the news that some international partners are kept in Artsakh by force. Thank you for your question. It's not always that we, like Azerbaijanis, like Azerbaijani troops, by a slow-down movement or attacks. This is not something we make to show in slow motion super accurate strikes to surprise our audience and to suffice them, like Azerbaijanis do. Dear friends, war and fire and counter-strikes are quite episodic, and it's not always that they need to be filmed and shown. And because of this, very often people perceive this war like a virtual game. It leaves an impression like that very often among the audience, but this is not the case. We need UAVs, we need the weapons, armory, etc. But the main mission is completed by humans, their will and their desire to protect, defend their own land, or in case of enemy, I won't name their motivation. So we will film. If we find it convenient and appropriate, we will publicize it. As far as the journalists and international partners kept here by force, here you have lots of international journalists sitting here, and I suggest Armenian media to film, make a few interviews about their international counterparts sitting here, so that they will explain you what is their motivation to come and film Armenians defending their small holy piece of land. Yes, they spread some other news as well. And there are some journalists who are regulars here. Others are coming here for the first time, and they sincerely illustrate the situation in the world. And of course, they become friends with us because we share the same system of values. Because when people see that peaceful citizens are being bombed, when they see that people become refugees, when they see that Azerbaijan operates with false values, fake information, and hollow ideas, because of which they kill us and also they kill their own soldiers, people, international journalists, international mass media sitting here, they've been working here for quite a number of days, and they see it all. I feel really sorry that very often, as a result of this kind of media information, or in case of volunteers coming from diaspora in Azerbaijan, they film impactful materials about all this. It's a really painful fact. I am in Artsakh for the third or fourth time. I go to different parts of the front line. I'm here today and we're working here. And all I can see is one thing. We see the unity of our people. I see the unity of the entire Armenian nation. Whether this Armenian is located in Armenia, in Yerevan, in any other region, or from Lebanon, from France, whatever. I have friends here with me from the United States, from France. We have people here from France. People all came here to protect their holy motherland. And if 10, 15 days ago, at war, our situation was slightly worse than today, it's definitely better today. I'm not stating that the bad days are gone, but I believe that 10, 15 days ago it was worse. Now, thanks ago, our self-organization, our power and force and resources are in a much better situation, and Azerbaijani pseudo-statements that they are trying to spread, we don't feel them here in Artsakh. This whole counter-propaganda has no sense. We don't see any panic. We don't see any counteractions. We don't see anybody who is kept here by force. On the contrary, we see tens and hundreds of people trying to come here. If you see it in Yerevan, you may see the situation is pathetic. Yesterday, I attended a charity concert. It was organized on a square to raise funds, and people were coming up to me and saying, I'm a citizen of Lebanon. I've never been to the army. How can I go to the front line? It sounds really pathetic when you are in Yerevan, but when next day you see that person here in Artsakh, it means everything is so right. And people who are falling victims of Azerbaijani propaganda here and there, and they show some weakness of their power of will, I simply tell them, we will win, and I'm confident about it. I would never say that if I were not so sure about it, because I saw 18-year-olds soldiers with the flame and passion in their eyes. I saw them in Fizuli, Hadrut, in Karvachar. I saw the young officers who left everything. I saw our volunteers. We can't have this passion, this energy, this flame in their eyes to be defeated. And if those who have the slightest doubt about our victory, those who are under a partial impression of Azerbaijani propaganda, I would simply recommend them to breathe fresh air every now and then. Can you please tell us what's the situation on the road to Artsakh? We made an official statement that because of the safety and security of the civilians, and I mean civilians because the military transportations will continue. For civilians, this road will be temporarily closed. You know, of course, today we neutralized the group, but there might be some extra threats. We don't want people to be subject to threats. Thanks God we have roads to Artsakh. They can use the alternative routes. How can you recommend? How can you comment on the shootings on Stepanakert that were reported by the Ministry of Emergency and diversion groups? The diversionists will be caught one by one, and they will be terminated and eliminated everywhere. Doesn't matter if it's northwards, southwards, whether they are in the valleys or in the forests. All this will become a grave for them, nothing else. Whether it was 120 diversionists or not, 120 millimeter missile, I was doubting myself. In fact, it's really hard. D-30 missile, when it explodes, right after the explosion, it's hard to decide what was the diameter, but in fact, it's not relevant, I would say. You know, diversion groups, sometimes they reach far and then they get destroyed. And so yesterday you saw this military vehicle that was destroyed. It might have been full of ammunition, and they could come and fall a victim. You know, this is a war, and some specific episodes might take place. One more question, Mr. Hovhannisyan. Can you please tell us, are those UAVs that were downed on the territory of their mission? I cannot tell you that, you know, they were downed quite late. They were taken down quite late. I can't tell you at this moment. If we can see some parts, if some parts are visualized, we can easily know what their mission was. May I ask you a question, Mr. Hovhannisyan? My question is, how safe is the road of Kelbajar at the moment? I traveled via this road and it was quite safe. Any other questions? Okay, let's switch to electronic questions, online questions. Don't read out the questions from Azatutun. Okay, blog news. Mr. Hovhannisyan, in one of your press conferences you mentioned that it cannot be excluded that Azerbaijan sees the movement of our troops from their satellites. Yes, it might happen. Frankly speaking, this is a data which I cannot exclude. Nor Hayastan media. Why is it that the mass media of the enemy is so frequently referring to you and to Gagik Surenyan? Why are they mentioning you and Gagik Surenyan so often? I don't know. Maybe I'm a kind of headache for them. I don't know. I am. The tactics of military actions when changed, and the enemy, by using diversion groups, is nevertheless proceeding meter by meter in the Askeran region, and they use the paved roads as well. And they come with their weapons quite close to Berdor Shushi Road. What are we doing to cut this artery of the enemy? And can we say how big is the volume of weapons and human resources that the enemy accumulated? It's a hard question to answer. Aliyev doesn't hide that Shushi is of vital importance for him. I think when he was stumbling on his place for a long time, he is really desperate now to hear about some glorious achievements. I will not say any more, but please know that meter by meter we're fighting for our land. Gerbab Ger 2020. Do you know the number of the enemy's troops, the number of soldiers that we destroyed? Well, tomorrow I think we will count and publicize this information. I will skip the questions of Azadutsun radio station, Lurեր 24 AM. It has already been mentioned that in Gegarkunik region, 2 UAVs of the enemy have been downed. What is the situation now? It is relatively quiet. The last UAV has been taken down at around 10 o'clock, Bagramian 26. The Security Service of Armenia, Intelligence Service of Armenia, publicized the videos about the Azerbaijani troops and borderline troops. Well, we have the borderline troops. You know that from the very first day they were involved in military actions, especially our board keepers, and many borderline officers were really heroic in their battle. Gala. Can you please tell us about the updates about General Jalal Haruzyan and his health? Any progress? There is a positive progress. From my personal data, I know that as of yesterday, Mr. Jalal Haruzyan was breathing on himself. He was taken off the artificial ventilation machine. Let's hope for better. What is the situation in Gegarkunik and Sunig region? Well, this is a question that is repeated. We have already covered it. Armenia. Again, a question about Gegarkunik region. What is the reason? Well, you know, perhaps the enemy, realizing that we're now, let's say, focusing more in some parts, they are probably trying to investigate or become activated in some other regions, so we shouldn't be surprised at this. If there are no more questions and the e-questions are over as well, let me say a few conclusive remarks. Dears, the confidence in our victory is the strongest in the most difficult times, in the times of the biggest hardships. Probably there will be more times of hardships in the future. This war is going on, and every day we see heroism, we see hardships that are overcome. We see from different sides the daily attempts of enemies' attack to achieve any success. The intensity of the war has been reduced, but the enemy is persistent every single day. Therefore, we will have either mid-term or long-term ongoing war, and every meter of our land, we must defend it all the way to the end. I'm confident about the unity of the Armenian nation. I'm confident about the heroism of the Armenian soldier. I'm confident about the wisdom of Armenian commanders, and I'm confident about our victory. Thank you.